context. Oh, sorry, this is not being recorded. It's now recording. Context is everything, and I've had so many people pull me up on absolute rubbish in the past because I've said, hey everyone, I've gone into this, I love this, and then 2, 3, 5 years later they go, hey, why you must have lost loads of money because blah blah blah, and people don't understand the time frame and what strategy I'm deploying. So for example, I think I mentioned it last time, Tron. I was heavily into Tron in 2017, and I put like $50,000 into Tron at 2.5 cents or 3 cents, and it rallied up to 30 cents, and then it crashed all the way back down. And I got a load of people giving me loads of jip and hassle over that. But I got out at 21 cents. I think I made I made relatively high six figures just with Tron in 2017, which is a shitcoin, obviously. And so I really don't like giving like when to get in, when to get out, because I'm constantly moving in and out of the markets. In terms of what I'm doing right now, I'm staying put. So I've still got, I think I've got like 20, 30 different cryptos. 𝗴𝗡 and Ether are my two biggest holding ones. Am I putting any more in at the moment? No, I'm not, is the answer.
Okay.
And the reason being is that the thing that people I think forget is that cryptos and the indices, as in the equity market, is very much linked together. And I mean, again, there's loads of YouTube videos on my channel which has explained it, but basically whenever stocks rally, crypto also follows suit as well. And whenever there's a bit of a tumble, crypto also follows suit. And that's simply because crypto is now also in the big scary world of options and futures and all sorts of derivatives. And Wall Street as a whole is now trying to get its little squid-like hands all over it. And so the thing that I'm really worried about, and it does concern me, is that in the 16 years of trading I've done, anything that goes vertically up always comes vertically down, like always. But you just don't know at what point it's going to come vertically down. And with Bitcoin, like it's every day, like we brush our teeth, every morning, every night, etc. Bitcoin's equivalent of brushing its teeth is having a 50% drawdown, a pullback, like every now and then. And so the question is not if it will have a 50% retrace or an 80% retrace. It's the question of when. And what I see happening is that sometime this year, probably in the early part of this year, probably, I don't know, February, March, April, we're probably going to have another downturn in equities. I think we're going to have a bit of a tumble. And with that, stocks will tumble, oil will tumble, crypto, gold and silver, everything will tumble. But then there's going to be that little disconnect where at some point, mid-tumble, cryptos are then going to disconnect and then go north. Simply because all of the strong hands go, hoo-hoo, look at this awesome buying opportunity. And then we'll see a hard base where it just won't go below. So I'm sorry, Kevin, that is a really shit answer to your question. It's just that I can't give any.
It's a good answer in terms of I completely get your perspective. It's hard to give a real answer. You can only give your opinion. I think it was down to people's own judgment to follow and make decisions of their own accord based off the research that they have. So I do appreciate your opinion and perspective. Thank you very much for that.
No worries. If it helps, I've got 150 grand in 𝗴𝗡 right now, and I'm holding. I'm doing nothing. Cool. Any other questions? Any questions? Anyone wants to pipe up? Adam, did you want to say something?
Hi, Siam. Yeah, hi. We met many years ago back in Peterborough Progressive on the crypto course back there.
Cool.
And I came to.
Oh yeah, 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃. Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
That's the one, buddy. That's the one. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. It's a long time.
Jolly good. It has been a long time. And I've sort of dived out of crypto because things didn't go my way so far. Anyway, it's not crypto based. What I'm wanting to chat about, I wanted a little bit of advice, if possible, if you could help in the way that I don't know if I've had this conversation with you, but I've been a performer, actor, dancer for 23, 24 years. And I got into property about 2015, so I've been into it about 6 years now.
Yeah.
But I know, having listened to you in the past, you've always had your vision about your school that you wanted to set up. And I know that's been something that's very ongoing for you. Now, I've had a similar sort of idea, or in the fact that I know I've got something inside me that wants to create something to be able to give back, because being self-employed, especially sort of performer artist over this last year through COVID, it's been really, really precarious. And had it not been for property and the income that I have from my buy-to-let and my service accommodation portfolio, I'd have been pretty fucked. And I've got a lot of people who have asked me, not only in the industry, how I've started to do it and things like that. And I cannot always direct them to training companies and education and this, that, and the other. But what I really want to do is potentially, we started a Clubhouse group called Property for Performers, which we are just sort of trying to create a small little network and invite people along who are thinking about getting into property, getting into the industry, but have fears, etc., etc. Now, what I'm starting to do is document those conversations and those discussions that we're having, and I'm figuring I will, with the amounts of discussions and topics that we have, just wondering what the best way about going, because I want to get into performing arts schools and colleges and offer them some kind of financial education seminar that tells them what it's like to live in the real world. People go to college and they want to be a doctor or a vet, and that's going to get them £40,000-50,000 a year, but they don't realise that actually their lifestyle that they might want to live with, their nice cars and their lovely holidays in this could cost them £100,000 a year, and they're not taught how to bring in extra sources of income. Now, it doesn't have to be about property, because there's a million different ways of bringing in extra income. It's that entrepreneurship, isn't it? So
can we just because we're only here for half an hour, can we just distill the question into like 10 seconds? So is the question
I would, if I'm going to start to put something like this together, where would I start? That's really broad. I'm starting with a blank piece of paper. Where would you start with a blank piece of paper with that idea?
So with that, there's quite a few things. So what you've described is pretty much identical to my WAP, the Wealth Action Plan. So if you go to thewap.org, and by the way, if anyone, I was here a good 3 or 4 years before that stupid song came around. I'm not leveraging the publicity of that silly song. So if you go to thewap.org, everything you just said is that, pretty much. And it's basically like a Netflix for everything: investing, economics, finance, setting up a business, launching it, all that, wealth generation as a whole. But here's the thing: it's really freaking hard. I've approached. So what I did is I wrote 450,000 words in 2018, and I condensed that all into, and I chopped it all up into 5-10 minute videos, animated videos. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of videos across everything: marketing, whatever you can think of, and it's all there. And it's incredibly hard getting people onto it. So, for example, we hold a 1 month free trial in the WAP, and you can basically you have access to a whole bunch of stuff for a month. And have a guess how much it costs me to get a free WAP trialer. Have a guess. How much do you think it costs?
I don't know. I would not even know where to begin to start.
It's between £50 to £100. So
I was going to come in at $100 or something like that.
Okay, yeah. So I'm doing it predominantly on Facebook at the moment, and there's method to mayhem there. So yeah, through Facebook adverts, it's costing me between £50 to £100 to get a single WAP, or what I call a WAPper, or WAP trialer. And then, and so it's really, really expensive. And so for me with that particular business, it's all about the conversion rate, as in how many of the trialers become full WAPers. Now, the WAP is cheap as chips. It's only £300 a year. Now, the only reason the WAP works is that we have a 54% conversion rate. So 54% of WAP trialers become a WAPper. And so it just works there. And so with things like that, you actually need a back end. You need a profitable back end. So the WAP is never going to make any money through making £300 a year fees. It's there's going to have to be, or we will launch it eventually. It's called the incubator, which will be a lot more. Now, going back to yourself, because the schooling system is a big part of my sort of conscious thinking. Like, I have tried very hard to get into schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and at the end of the day, they don't really care too much. They got bigger fish on their plate at the moment, mainly due to all the bloody social distancing type stuff. So they're a bit frazzled at the moment, and so they're not really interested in getting an external, person. Like the thing that I've had, the pushback I've had a lot with schools is, well, we have an economics teacher already. And he does all that. And so they sort of palm you off with, oh, we've already got an economics teacher. And nearly every time I go, well, has that economics teacher ever set up and run a business themselves? The answer is always a no, pretty much. Or, oh yeah, but he's got an MBA degree, or an MBA. And it's, well, yeah, but has he ever run a... And so, obviously I don't go into that sort of conversation, because you definitely don't want to go into a confrontational chat when you're pitching something. But it's hard, and to be honest, I haven't cracked it. I don't know is the thing. So what I'm doing, the way I'm doing, feel free to swipe and deploy if you see any value in it, is I'm creating my own school called 𝗵𝗶𝗀𝗶, and the WAP is effectively going to be sort of the wealth generation sort of syllabus in it. And when we get a bit more data on board, as in kids and helping the kids learn all of this stuff. When we have something which is actually tried and tested, and we have a whole bunch of kids that have set up their own business at school, then I'll try and sort of launch the WAP as into other schools as like the wealth generation module, because but I don't have a good answer for you, mate. I really don't.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's not necessarily standard schools that I want to go. It's more performing arts, where they churn out people that are naturally going to come out as self-employed. They're people that are not gearing, they're not training up to have a job, as it were.
Yeah.
They are going out into a world where they have to, technically, they are their own business as soon as they walk out the door.
Yeah. And I mean, my wife is in those boots. Like, she was a performer all of her life. She was, doing drama and all that, and then ended up doing a creative writing degree, and then has never done anything in relation to that degree. But she's not alone.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so there is a bit of a disconnect. But yeah, sorry for the probably not the answer you need.
That's fine. I will check out WAP. It's still making me chuckle just saying the word WAP. But okay, thanks
no worries.
Mate, and it's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, likewise.
I'll be back again, definitely. Don't worry.
Oh, cheers, mate. So there's a question in the Facebook Live that I'm doing at the moment, and they're asking about. So Gary's said, "What do you think of Elon influencing stocks / Bitcoin, etc.?" So yeah, let's get into that. So I've actually just done a 1 hour 45 live session with my students. I've gone through that. So if my voice is breaking up, it's because of that. So in the Facebook Live, right, I'm going to quickly go through this. So I will put the links in the Facebook Live. Sorry, Clubhouse, that you can't see this. I get this will be on YouTube later at some point. But I guess it really starts with Michael Saylor. So Michael Saylor is a guy who runs a couple of big businesses, and he shocked the world last year and bought $600 million or $650 million worth of Bitcoin. And then he kept on doing it. He kept on buying more and more. He's got well over $1 billion now. And he caught the attention of a lot of CEOs because, there he is. He's a big boy buying shitloads of Bitcoin. And what happened is that he finally, on the 3rd and 4th of February, so last Wednesday and Thursday, he held a thing called, what's it called? Bitcoin for Corporations. And he's basically laying out the whole playbook that he's done and how to acquire huge amounts of Bitcoin without moving the price. And so if we... And the videos, so the recording of that, I'm now going to put in the Facebook Live. There we go. And so there's about 5 hours worth of content, and it's worth watching, and it shows you exactly what he did tax-wise, how he acquired them, all that sort of stuff. And Michael Saylor and Elon have been talking for a while, and obviously Tesla's now come out with that SEC filing, and again, I'm going to put the link into that Facebook Live. And the key word that sort of got out in that filing, I'm going to read it out. So if I type in Bitcoin into the search function, we can see blah, 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 blah. In January 2021, we updated our investment policy to provide us with more flexibility to further diversify and maximize returns on our cash that is not required to maintain adequate operating liquidity. Yada, 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 yada. Thereafter, we invested an aggregate 1.5 billion in Bitcoin under this policy and may acquire and hold digital assets from time to time or long term, etc. And I mean, it's like a 50-page thing. So it's worth looking through that. But basically, this doesn't surprise me at all. It really doesn't, because Elon's already sort of murmured in the past, said in the past that he'll be fully open-minded into accepting Bitcoin, etc. Don't forget, he's rolling out his robo-taxis once level 5 autonomy is launched, so that's in line with it. But also, Bitcoin has huge fundamentals, so it's not a risky play. It's a smart move to diversify or have an element of your company cash in Bitcoin. It's a hedge against uncertainty, especially when you look at M2. So if you look at the currency supplying pretty much every nation, it's gone vertically up. Now, eventually, some of that is going to trickle down into other assets. Now, mainly more like Bitcoin. At the moment, all of that currency creation has been basically used to prop up the stock market, which is why it's a massive bubble. And Bitcoin is probably the pin that's going to pop that bubble. So, yeah. So in terms of Gary's question, in terms of manipulating it, yeah, he's probably going to get investigated by the SEC now for trying to push Dogecoin and Bitcoin because he's been doing all sorts of tweets. But the funny thing is, crypto is an unregulated asset, so I don't think it actually comes under the SEC purview at the moment. So yeah, maybe he has pushed it up, but it's a wise move. So yeah, again, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions here in Clubhouse? Anything else? Anything to add? Or any questions at all? Just pop your hand up. I'm trying to make this a chat as much as possible. Here we have Tom. Hey, Tom. Again. Wait, how do I... Are you there?
Hi, Sam.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, how you doing, alright?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. So, yes, what's the follow on your Elon stroke Tesla point on the cryptocurrency stuff? You mentioned it earlier. So, obviously, I've learned from you anyway, and I fully believe that what goes up must come down. But with companies like Tesla buying so much Bitcoin and the likes, is that going to bring a much higher level of resistance moving forward? Like, are they really going to be the kind of player that leaves Bitcoin at the point of a crash, for example?
Yeah, so all that's happening, so it's a spot-on question, because what was happening is I guess the lower base of support is now going to be rising. So it's not just Elon. So Elon's 1.5 billion. We've got Michael Saylor. Don't forget, we've got Grayscale Investments that are buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth. I think today, the Ethereum futures market is now launched. And like the whole market space is becoming more mature. So yes, there will be, in fact, moving forward, I think there'll still be massive pullbacks, 50% pullbacks, etc. But over time, as years progress, they're going to become less frequent and smaller in nature, simply because of the size of the whole market. It's now over $1 trillion market cap, so you're going to have less volatility over time. And so when we have the inevitable equity rollover and stocks, everything starts crashing. Yes, crypto, everything will crash with it temporarily. But as you said, that support, that big old support, is going to be coming up because it's just going to be seen as a massive buying opportunity by small fry like me that can pop in an extra whatever. But other businesses are going to be doing that as well. But don't forget, there's the other side to this story, which a lot of people aren't talking about, and it's Wall Street missing the boat and going to FOMO in. Remember, this is the tiniest of doors, and there's going to be a mass stampede of capital into these tiny, tiny little doors, and people are going to get trampled on. And so what happens is now we're having the biggest billionaire on the planet, official billionaire, which is Musk, going pretty big into crypto. Like, this is almost legitimizing Bitcoin. So, for example, if you were a CEO last year saying, hey, I'm going to put a whole bunch of, or even 2018, 2017, I'm going to put a whole bunch of money into Bitcoin, you were at risk of losing your job as CEO of that company, because the board of directors would have gone, our CEO's gone whack here, let's get rid of him or her. Whereas now, because there's so many Wall Street firms like Grayscale Investments, etc., and all these billionaires now buying it up, it's legitimizing it. So other CEOs are going to follow suit. Don't forget, Michael Saylor just briefed and told everyone how to buy shitloads of Bitcoin without moving the price. But on the other side of that, we have the banks. Now, we have lots of big banks that have missed the boat here, and lots of big banks that have been slagging Bitcoin off from day one. And now it's a case of, shit, anyone that has Bitcoin in their portfolio has massively outshone the whole market in general, even though equities are rallying like crazy. And so we now have this is interesting, because we're going to have a sea of billionaires plowing into crypto, which again is going to push this even into further bubble territory, which will then mean that the inevitable pullback is going to be horrendous. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a crash from $100,000 Bitcoin all the way back down to $40,000 Bitcoin. It won't surprise me at all. But with a lot of these billionaires, let's say I don't know, J.K. Rowling, who was inquiring about Bitcoin a while back, and Elon was responding to her. She's got billions, okay? And it's not like just her. There are loads of billionaires out there who are very good at what they do, but they're shit at investing, because they got rich by doing their business or doing their thing, but they don't know investing, and so obviously they got a team around them. And so J.K. Rowling may go, or someone like her go, hey, I want to do what Elon's doing. I want $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. Go. Now, the executors will be Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, or a big one like that. So these billionaires actually tell their family office, because they'll have a team of people managing his or her money, called a family office. It will be a very small office. And their job is to look after the money. So the directive will come down to billionaire to family office, get me shitloads of Bitcoin. The family office will go, oh my god, we know nothing about Bitcoin, what do we do? They then get in touch with their bank friends, so as I said, Goldman or whatever, and then they'll put in a big order for $1 billion of Bitcoin at this price. Let's say they'll say, I want to get in at $40,000. So that order then goes down to the trading floor of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, whatever, Deutsche Bank. And then the traders, the head trader and the traders go, sweet, we have this order for $40,000, for $40,000 Bitcoin. Which means not only are they getting a commission from exercising this, but if they can acquire Bitcoin cheaper than $40,000, then that's pure profit for the bank. So what do you think the banks are going to do? They're going to cause a crash. They do it all the time. So yeah, we had the big crash in 2018, and in my opinion, that is a lot of banks forcing the market down so they can get their fill, because especially as the world is now creating all sorts of exchange traded funds, there's all sorts of funds that will be popping up, Bitcoin funds, Ether funds, whatever. You need the actual crypto to launch these funds. So that's the other side. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I at the moment I've still hands open, I've got $370,000 worth of crypto right now, and I'm getting very nervous because I want to pull it out. I want to lock in when I think about it, it's probably between 100 150 grams worth of profit I've made in the last 2 months just from crypto. It's nuts. So big part of me wants to pull out, but I think there's a bit more upside. I mean, what does everyone think? Does anyone here massively disagree with me? Because I love honest discord. Because engaging in an honest discord is a way that you can find out what you don't know. So does anyone here massively disagree, or a slightly different view? No? Am I on my own here? Come on, Clubhouse, there's a bunch of you here. Okay, we have one hand. We have Jake. Hey, Jake is always in. Go for it, sir. Jake is a switched on cookie, by the way, boys and girls. Hey, Jake.
Yeah, well, sometimes. I'll tell you what I'm really bad at.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at trading.
Everyone is.
Every single time I try to not just buy for the medium term, I lose money.
Yeah.
And so whilst I agree with you that there will be stock market crashes, and historically Bitcoin has always gone along with it.
Yeah.
That's just tough luck for me, because if I try and trade around that, I'll lose money again.
Yep.
So when it happens, my view is sort of more a sort of 2 to 3 year view.
Yeah.
And,
solid.
I'm looking at a classic bell curve, and I reckon Elon Musk is not even right at the extreme right-hand side, but he's a little bit in, because he had to be suggested to get into this space. He's been considering it for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But it's very public. You know, we've got public figures buying Bitcoin. Now, we don't have public figures buying dollar. Yeah, you don't get a news article if somebody buys a lot of dollar. When we get to the middle and to the left-hand side of that bell curve, where it's actually a normal occurrence for small to medium-sized companies to have some Bitcoin cryptocurrency, what I tell you is there's going to be a lot more money in Bitcoin by that point. And I know that we're miles off it.
Correct.
And so I'm holding my Bitcoin, as well as playing around with some of the other crypto, but most of the asset is Bitcoin.
Yep.
And I'm holding it because I'm rubbish at trading. And that's sort of the way I see it. It's perhaps more simplistic than your breakdown of it, but it sort of makes sense to me.
And that is, in my opinion, the best route of action for 99% of people out there, to simply buy and hold for the long term, and then pound cost average in over time.
And my view is, I'm thinking that it will get to a point, if all these people pile in, you said very small doors, lots of people trying to get through them. If they all pile in, it's quite reasonable that it will get to somewhere around $300,000 plus or minus $200,000, depending on which day you look at it.
Yeah.
And if I can pull large swathes of it out at a price that's somewhere around $300,000-$500,000, and then stick it all into, because at the moment, according to your terms, you talk in the WAP about asset accumulation and asset preservation. I'm in asset accumulation, 100%.
Same.
I'm not even worried about preservation.
Correct. Same.
If it gets to that kind of magnitude, I shall move quite large sums of it into asset preservation, and I shall look back on life thinking, I'm done, I'm happy.
Yeah, nice.
And that's my rationale.
And it's solid, mate. Honestly, for most people listening to here, that is solid words of Bitcoin there.
You just got to try and get as much as you can now, which can be difficult for people because they don't necessarily have the assets sitting around, but do what you can to get in.
Exactly. And for the business owners here, because you're one as well, looking at the list on the Facebook Live and also in this clubhouse, there are a fair few business owners here. Like, the other seesaw that you also need to contend with is extracting profits now, even though you may... So, like Rupert in the Facebook said, more upside in 2021, lots of momentum, not sure about the crazy price predictions of 200k plus, but we reckon we'll hit 100k this year, if only for a day. And yeah, I agree as well. So, but the thing is, it's probably worth taking some money off the table if you have a business, so you can then reinvest into your business. Because when you look at the R multiple of your business, it's just obscene. So if you have a business which, let's say you have a marketing pillar of some sort where, for every pound you put in at the top, it turns out, hell, even £1 comes out at the bottom. That's still profit for you, actually. So the seesaw I'm contending with right now is, do I take out, say, 100 grand profit right now and just pile it straight back into my businesses? And that I know for a fact will then spit out more, like almost guaranteed profits over time.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The way I'm handling that is I keep my Bitcoin relatively liquid, or at least some of it, and I take out what I need in order to build the business and move it forward. Yeah. So I think it's a great asset, but I think my business is also an asset, and it's now an asset that is not starved of cash in any way. Yeah. So that's quite a luxurious position for a business to be in. It's the first one that I've actually had that's been in that position.
And because of the 2020 shitstorm and all small businesses are going bust, etc., like, if you can shout and be loud right now, you have way less competition. Yeah, exactly. Because no one is marketing. Like, no one is marketing at all at the moment. Well, not really. And so Gary has also said, I'm concerned about the 20% of lost Bitcoin. It's a lot more than that, mate. Which I believe is lost for good. And a further very large amount that is being held without being traded means that the liquidity of the market is significantly smaller than is probably ideal, as it's extremely vulnerable to manipulation up and down. So can Bitcoin ever be stable and be what it was intended to be? So I don't think it will ever be what it was intended to be, because if you read the white paper, and very few people have, it was intended to be a global currency, and you can't have a global currency when it's going up and down in value, plus or minus 100%, something crazy like that. But you're right in terms of the lost Bitcoin. So there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin ever in existence, and the last Bitcoin that will be mined in the year 2140. But when you look at the distribution curve of Bitcoin, we've had like 90 to 95% of all the Bitcoin that has ever been going to be mined. So we're entering that plateau part of that distribution curve. So basically all the Bitcoin that's going to be out there has already been issued, and there's reports of anywhere between 5 million to 10 million Bitcoin that have been lost forever. I know for a fact, like myself, I lost 15 Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017 because I sent it to the wrong freaking address. 15 Bitcoin, and I'm not the only one. And there's all sorts. Yeah. So yeah, but I've heard worse horror stories. So in terms of circulating supply, it's tiny. And I would hazard that the circulating supply is around, let's call it 10 million Bitcoin right now. And we have the market cap of $1 trillion. So it wouldn't be hard to, crazy to say that the market cap of Bitcoin is going to at least match the market cap of gold, which is $10 trillion. So we have, another $9 trillion worth of Bitcoin to flow into this. But when you do the maths, remember it's MPC, market. So in order to find out the potential price, so you take the market cap divided by circulating supply. So if we have $10 trillion, oh my God, there's too many zeros. Someone's going to have to Google this. $10 trillion divided by 10 million. That gives you ridiculous amounts of, I think it gives you something like a price point of $1 million Bitcoin, or something crazy like that. But yeah, tiny doors, shitloads of money. And when you look at, I think the last Credit Suisse report of global wealth, I think it was like total global wealth was like $250 trillion. Okay, now if you ask anyone to say, hey, would you be prepared to put 1% of your total net worth into, I don't know, Bitcoin or any asset? It could be, Pokemon cards, whatever. Like they would. I mean, just ask yourself. Like, everyone here is different. Like, you could be someone on minimum wage or whatever, and 1% of your net wealth is everything's relevant. So no one would really ever bat an eyelid about putting 1% of your net worth into something. So if you just take 1% net worth of, or 1% of that global net worth of 250 trillion, that's what, $2.5 trillion. So I mean, hell, $2.5 trillion moving into crypto, and 50% of that most likely going into Bitcoin, it's going to push things up. So yeah, just if you're in crypto, put what you can afford to lose in, and then pound cost average in over time, and just please play the long game. As I said in the last wealth generation chat, my mum has lost, for some of you know this, like my mum, I was begging her for months and months to do nothing, but she bought 27 grand's worth of Bitcoin at $5,000, and then I spent about 3 or 4 months just trying to do everything to not get her to exit, because she was trying to exit. Anyway, she pulled out, she broke out at break even, and she got out Bitcoin at around $5,000. So her 27 grand will be well over 250 grand right now if she'd listened to me. So that is my cautionary tale of just, as Jake said, buy, hold, and forget about it.
So I have a question.
Go for it, Adam.
A question on this. Okay, we understand with securities, equities, etc., they have an underlying bank, and typically one of the big four. Why with crypto would somebody be doing that? Why are the banks involved? Why would somebody not buy it directly?
So can I come in and answer?
Oh yeah, go for it.
It's not a definitive answer. It's just something for people to think about. I have a friend who I think his role is COO of the first Swiss crypto bank that is a regulated bank.
Cool.
A bank called Sabre. So he actually knows quite a lot about institutional Bitcoin. And there are a lot of reasons why people with a lot of money want to go through a regulated environment. They might want to go through a regulated environment because of trust. Yeah, so they actually don't fully understand how all this stuff works, and they want to devolve that lack of knowledge to the bank. There might be organisations who will, as a matter of policy, or can't use anything other than a regulated environment. And there might want to be people who know that all of the due diligence has been done. Yeah, so the hardest bit of setting up this bank for them has actually been working out and then implementing proper Fort Knox type safe storage, cold storage, and so there are lots of people that want to buy into that and don't necessarily know that something that's not regulated has done that.
Did everyone get that? Adam?
That makes sense to me. Is there anything you'd add to that? Thank you. Thanks, Jake.
This is hilarious. You can't see this. First of all, Jake, I have to apologise. I didn't hear a word of what you just said. Because as you were talking, and those on the Facebook Live probably saw this, my youngest ran in my office going, "Daddy, Daddy!" And then I was trying to get him away, and then my wife had to take him out.
I'll summarise it. I did quite a long spiel, but the short spiel is: imagine if you are the person who is responsible for cash in British Gas.
Yep.
So British Gas has lots and lots of assets which it trades actively in order to make money on it. So if you're responsible for the asset base of British Gas, you're not going to throw it into something that is not regulated, because it turns out that all of your money gets stolen. You look like an idiot and you lose your job.
Correct. Yeah,
so,
I agree.
So there are lots of people who want a regulated environment, and Sabre is just an example. They're ahead of the curve, but Sabre is doing exactly what large numbers of the big banks will be also doing, so that they can offer that service to their corporate finances.
And don't forget, you have the added stuff with the regulated environment that you have protection. So there'll be a whole insurance market that will pop up for big Bitcoin investors, where they'll pay a monthly premium to insure their holdings. I mean, the premium is going to be huge. But also, the other thing is that security. Like, you don't want to be dicking around holding, like, if I suddenly had $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, I would shit my pants in terms of looking after that, in terms of cybersecurity and stuff. I can barely remember the passwords to my own freaking websites, let alone, the private keys. So you don't want to be messing around with that. So that's why, it'll be a lot safer.
That problem to someone else.
Exactly.
Who has spent many years putting all of that stuff in place.
Correct, with multi-sig, cold storage wallets, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, and to follow on for that, Tim has asked, how do they store these billions of Bitcoin? They will be... Actually, it's quite surprising. When you look at the concentration of big holders of crypto, you have a lot of big, huge amounts of crypto in like one wallet. So personally, I would probably have hundreds of different wallets and then equally disseminate it across all of the wallets. But then it's an utter ball ache in getting it all out, if you want to move around. So those that have a lot of Bitcoin will most likely have nodes. They'll be running their own Bitcoin node, so they have control of it all. But they'll have multi-sig, cold storage, etc. Or they'll go to Coinbase. So Coinbase started off as the first sort of enterprise Bitcoin deposit, bank, so to speak, where you can get them to look after your crypto for you. But yeah, so I've just looked at the time. It's we've been talking for 40 minutes, folks, and so I'm going to have to cut this call today. I really want these to be sort of bite-sized, half-an-hour chunks, so people can listen to them whilst they're cutting the grass or whatever. But yeah, so Jake, Adam, Tom, and I think it was another Adam. Yeah, thanks for your input today. Has this helped? Those on Facebook and Clubhouse, has today's chat helped?
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks, Simon.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, I'll hopefully see you tomorrow. I'm going to be doing this every weekday at 1600 UK time. So I look forward to seeing you all soon. And
See you soon.
yep. Cheers, folks.
Bye.
Toodles. Bye.